Okay. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can start in on my slides. Is that full screen for you all?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you everybody for being here for our 2024 Spark Users Group meeting. It is, as always, so excited to see so many people from across the state, some people that I know, some people I haven't met yet, some people who've been around for a while. So I have a number of things to go through here first, and then we will get to our panel and hopefully have a really good conversation about library card signups. So, as most of you hopefully know, I am Katie Greenleaf Martin, and I am the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Integrated Library System, home of the Spark Consortium. And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the things that we have going on at the consortial office, including congratulating our outgoing and incoming users group board officers. And then once I get done with my chatter, then I am going to open it up to a discussion. We have a few panelists with us today from our own consortium and from other places to talk about how they encourage library card signups outside of the library. So partnerships with school districts, partnerships with other organizations, having ways to do it online, so the data management part of that. And so I'm very excited to welcome them, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. I will have each of them talk a little bit about what they're doing, and then I will open up the floor for questions. So please think about as you have ideas and questions, or if there's something that you're doing that you'd like to share with us around driving library card signups, we'll be excited to hear about it. Okay. So, yes. Hi. Okay. Spark Libraries, yay! So I am very pleased that the Berks County Libraries are no longer a different color because they are full-fledged Spark members. They came officially, had their first day on February 8th, and so they are just over a month in, and we're wrapping up their migration type tasks. And so it is great to have them with us, and I know that they will bring a lot to the consortium. And we have in April a library coming on down in Somerset County, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But these are all of our members. Ooh. I want to thank Vince Giordano of the Juniata County Library. He has been our users group chair for the past 2 years as we made some changes in the users group board and that setup, and he's really helped us with that transition. And I am very pleased that while he is leaving the users group, he is coming onto the Pales board. So you'll see him again on that slide. So thank you, Vince, for everything that you have done and will continue to do for us.
Thank you for the opportunities.
Thanks, Vince. And I am pleased that our chair of the users group, so she's been the chair-elect for the past year, Heather Linskold, my neighbor here in Central Pennsylvania, will be our incoming chair. And Brianna, oh my gosh, I was going to confirm this beforehand. Is it Camino?
It's Semino, but it's
Semino.
okay. Whatever
Okay.
floats your boat.
Semino. I will remember that this time. Thank you. Brianna Semino from Albright is going to be our chair-elect, so she will serve as the chair-elect this year and then be the chair the following year when we bring in a new chair-elect. So Heather and Brianna, are there any things that you want to say as we welcome you into your new roles?
Just excited to be here. Happy to be helping out in a new way. Excited that Brianna is the chair-elect. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited too. I am excited to learn more with everybody, and Heather is wonderful, so I'm excited to work with her.
Yes, I think we're going to have a wonderful board this year. We also have our committee chairs who I want to thank for everything that they do in terms of helping us manage projects and get feedback and, really helping us have that direct connection to the things that are going on in our libraries and the specific kind of tasks that people are doing and the things that we need to look at from a training perspective, from a documentation perspective, from a development perspective. We rely on all of our member libraries, but especially on the committees and our committee chairs to communicate those things to us and to help us understand what's going on. And so thank you to Betty, Natalie, Tessa, and Danielle. I got to attend most of the committee meetings this month, and they were all really good. A lot of good content. So thank you all for everything that you do. And we will be looking forward to the next round of committee meetings, late spring, early summer. So much more to come from those committees. I also would be remiss if I did not thank the Pales Board. The Pales Board is the sort of, engine that keeps us going. We are a 501c3, and they provide oversight and guidance and a lot of perspective, and have really supported me as a new executive director. I'm very grateful for their involvement and support. We have a number of more big projects for them to take on this year. So thank you to those of you who are members, who have served on the board or are serving on the board, as well as our external members, because it's really valuable perspective. So thank you, everybody. And of course, my team. You guys all know me, I hope, by now. And of course, Elizabeth Davis is our support and project management specialist, and Kat Donnell is our membership engagement specialist. And you'll be hearing a little bit from both of them here as we continue on. I do have some announcements. And I think I skipped it on a previous slide, and I will make sure that I have it in the slide deck. But we could not do the work that we do without support from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries and our funding from the Library Service and Technology Act through the Institute of Museum and Library Service. We are proud to have that funding. We're thrilled to participate in that program and really leverage that funding to be able to help our libraries offer more services. And all of these are projects that are funded directly through that grant. And in particular, the eCard pilot program is something that we got expanded funding this year to be able to start rolling that out. So we're very excited, and we're very happy to be participants in that grant program. So here I have 4 announcements, and they are talking about our eCard pilot program. We do have another library coming on in April, as I mentioned. We'll also continue the rollout of the data and privacy policy, and we've made some changes to our SMS management system. So I will go through each of those. Elizabeth Davis, do you mind taking this slide and talking a little bit about what we have going on here?
Sure. So last spring or last summer, we shared info about a data and privacy policy that we were going to be implementing. It was adopted in the fall, and library directors have been signing it the last few months to make sure everyone is aware of it. So as part of that, we're going to begin our data cleanup, which means removing full ID numbers from a patron's accounts, aging circulation, and anonymizing, I can never say that word right, old accounts if the circulation has no bills. So that work will start this spring. So you'll start seeing the impact of that shortly. In conjunction with that, we are going to be having a reports permission group. This will be a secondary permission group for anybody who needs it. And library directors will receive a big list of all of your staff and we'll need them to indicate which staff will need reporter permissions. You'll have to sign a waiver indicating that you read the data privacy policy and accept it. And then we will make updates after June 6th to the accounts so that if you haven't signed the waiver, you'll no longer have access to running reports until you do, but all staff will still be able to view reports shared with them. So this is in conjunction with that data privacy policy, and we want to make sure that everyone is following best privacy practices. So,
Excellent. Thank you. I had emailed everybody about this, but just wanted to issue a reminder. We'd been having some difficulties with the way that we were doing SMS messages was to send them as emails. So the carrier had to be correct in order to generate the correct email address. And carriers are getting more and more strict about that. It's called an email gateway, the sending of those messages, because they're also used by people for nefarious purposes. And so we were able to use grant funding to partner with Message B, which is a product from Unique Management Services. And so what that means is that you will see already most of our text messages, and we're still rolling out the last few, are going to come from this one phone number. And then you won't get bounce backs from the way that you would if we were generating them as emails. We get those bounce backs centrally, and we're able to see all those delivery reports. So not just if it went out from Spark, but if it was actually delivered to the phone number and if it wasn't, what the issue was. So that's going to give us some more visibility over what's going on there. So one of the things that we will be doing is to be looking at those delivery reports and updating patron accounts where we are getting those errors, so that you'll know if you have a patron call in about not receiving text messages and you open their account and there's a note from Elizabeth or Kat or I saying that the phone number, it said we were trying to text a landline, or it's, said that the phone number was completely undeliverable. So we will be providing that information through the patron accounts is the plan. So we're excited because it should really improve the reliability of those text messages. They should be getting them at consistent times instead of delayed. And we set the hours during which we can send text messages, so nobody will get one in the middle of the night. And so that's going to provide us with some increased reliability. So we're excited about it.
Katie, there's a question in chat from Vince.
Yeah, so this would be an area that we would be interested to get some feedback about. Our plan was to go in and edit the patron accounts. If libraries would prefer to, if you think it'd be better to receive a list of accounts that had a bad phone number, error phone numbers, obviously we want to do it one way. It's a consortium-wide product, so we want to do it consistently for all the accounts. But if people have thoughts about what would be the most desirable way to hear about phone number issues, that would be helpful information. Vince, do you have thoughts about it?
Getting a list in whichever way would be useful for me, but I'm flexible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, did you have any more thoughts about? I know we'd had some conversations about what we were going to start doing, but we haven't really finished talking about it. So,
I was gonna just put a note, but if people would rather the list themselves, that's fine too. Whatever, I guess whatever is most helpful for frontline staff.
Yeah, I think it will be much easier for our patrons because they're just going to get those more reliably, and we don't have to do the dance of figuring out what carriers are all really Verizon anyway when we register those accounts. So the plan is, once this is fully implemented, that we will hide that provider field on the patron registration form, so that you just, don't have to worry about it. And uh, but we're still working through some of the text message settings. This is a consortial implementation, so libraries can choose to use a notice. For instance, some of our libraries have account expiration text messages, most of them don't. So libraries can use a notice or not, but if libraries are using them, they're the same. If anybody is interested in a custom implementation of MessageBee for text messages, and they also do emails that have a lot of enhanced content, we're happy to set you up with them and help with the implementation of that. But what we're able to provide through our grant funding is a consistent consortial application, just to make sure that those messages are reliably going out. Yay! Jacob got a text for the first time. So yes, hopefully it is working for people. I know that I've definitely heard from some people that they've gotten the text messages. So that's nice to know that it is already improving that functionality.
In terms of like the notifications, this is like big picture, but is there a way to potentially have it be like a wish list enhancement in Evergreen that it can, I'm thinking like Hopeless Holds, or even run reports on it that who's at UMS that's using it would communicate with Evergreen saying, there's a list of invalid phone numbers, or somehow that we could eventually down the road, so you guys wouldn't have to be sending out the lists and all of that.
Right. So
You know what I mean?
the way because of to get the pricing that we got, we agreed that we would only have consortial logins to the database, or to the UMS product. And so right now we're the ones getting those for everybody. If libraries do want to do their own implementation, then they would have their own login and they would get that information directly. But that would be an additional cost. Now, I will say that one of the things that the Evergreen Community Development Initiative prioritized for this year, was it in the top 5, Elizabeth and Kat? I think it was.
I don't know if it was top 5, but I think it was the top 10.
Top 10. So text message handling, the native text message handling in Evergreen is something that could use some TLC. And many consortia are fixing it by going out to these third-party providers, but there is momentum in the community around making some changes. And so then you could have things like automatically generated notes or reports for failures and things like that. I like the idea of the hopeless holds, have hopeless notices. So that is something that there is community activity around, and we'll hope that'll be a few years out. And so we felt like this is a big problem for our members right now, and we want to go ahead and fix it, and then also pursue development on it through the ECDI. And yes, we have it for most of the notices. Our Berks folks got it for all of their notices. They were kind of the test case, and then we also went to the hold message, because that is the vast majority of our messages are the hold messages. Went to everybody, and then we've been adding them as we go. As always, if you would like more text messages, fewer text messages, more emails, fewer emails, we can't do really customizations to the text messages, but we can do customizations to the emails. Just let us know at the support desk. It's easy for us to walk you through, this is what's going out right now, so that you can make sure things are consistent, or make any changes. Just let us know. Did I get all the questions? I think I did. Okay. All right, Kat.
Yeah, so we're really excited to announce once again that we are bringing on the Mary S. Biesecker Public Library, which is located in Somerset. Some might know that we already do have the Somerset County Libraries on our system, and Mary Biesecker is not part of their system. They're an independent standalone library, although they do work with the other Somerset libraries for some of their programs like the Story Stroll, which is like one of those outdoor story walks. So we're really excited to bring them on. This will be the last migration for the year, I believe, potentially.
We don't have anybody else scheduled yet.
We don't have anybody else. Yeah. The point is that we really appreciate all of your patience with the empty bib records when you see them, when we are doing our record load. If you could please not delete any of the empty bibs, you will start to see those again leading up to April 11th, which is when they go live. So that is very exciting stuff coming up.
Yay. Okay, and my last announcement is something that many of you who have seen me in committee meetings or talked to me at various places have heard a little bit about, but we wanted to make the official announcement that we have received funding through LSTA from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries to be able to look at true eCard signups with address verification in Spark. And we are super excited about it. We this fall we're able to select Kipu as our provider, and they work with a number of other evergreen consortia as well as a number of non-evergreen libraries in Pennsylvania, like Allegheny County. And so we're working with them on the setup and on some development for the evergreen part of it to make sure that it does everything that we want. And starting late summer, early fall, we will have our first libraries be able to offer the eCard system, and then eRenew is going to come a little bit later as we get that development done. And so we are still, we're going to do a couple rounds of pilot libraries as we, figure out how it's going to work. And so if your library is interested in being an early adopter of this, please let us know. We have heard from some people already that they are interested, and we'll just need to there's some math with service area sizes and making sure that we're handling all the use cases for us to decide who will be in the pilot libraries. Then once we get that figured out, we'll be able to offer it for anybody who wants it. This is the kind of thing where it will be available widely, hopefully within the next year. But it won't, my plan is not for it to ever be mandatory. There are certainly evergreen consortia and other consortia that do have this for their entire consortium. That would be great if we get there, but that would be a very long-term thing. So if it's something that your library is not interested in doing, that is okay. And we will, continue to work with people and see how it goes. So we're very excited about it. And we're going to get to see a little bit of it and talk a little bit more about it in a few minutes here. So any other questions before I continue on? Yeah, so one of the things that we are working out development-wise is if a person already has a card, then what happens with duplicates? So how does it identify duplicates and what happens? Ultimately, the idea will be that they will get then routed to eRenew. But since it'll be staged, there is going to be a period of time where that isn't going to be as clear. I think I will try to put a pin in that and then ask our Georgia friends how they have handled that as they staged their eCard and eRenew implementation. Because that isn't something that we've figured out yet. We're still in the pretty early phases of this, so this is the this is the yay, it's coming announcement. All the questions are helpful because it'll inform our decisions about the development that needs to be done and the setup that needs to be done on the Kipu side. So thank you, Mary Ellen, for that question. And if anybody else has thoughts, continue to let us know, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. Okay. So I am so happy to introduce some colleagues of mine, and I'm just scrolling through. Okay, Dana, I know Dana had a last minute facilities thing, but it looks like she is here. So I am happy to welcome Dana Faribaugh from Jefferson Hills Public Library in Allegheny County, Taryn McCanna from the Georgia Public Library Service. Many of us will have heard of the Pines Evergreen Consortium, and Megan Mariotti from the Newcastle Public Library. So these are three people that have really interesting ways that their libraries, systems, and consortia work with their partner organizations like school districts and use products like Kipu to do this. So thank you all three for joining us. I'm very appreciative of it. And then I think what I will do is turn off my screen sharing. And then I'm going to ask each of you to talk a little bit about the things that you're doing in this area, and give us an opportunity to kind of take a look at that. So I'm going to start with Taryn, if that's okay. Taryn is a colleague that I have seen from afar because she is very famous in the world of Evergreen, does a lot of development and community participation, and is a wonderful resource. And one of the things that Georgia Pines has been able to do is to use Kipu, infamous, statewide. And so she's offered to give us a little bit of a look at the way that they do this implementation for all of their libraries in Georgia, which is the vast majority of libraries in Georgia. So thank you for joining us, Taryn.
Well, thank you for having me. My name's Taryn. I'm the Pines Program Manager for GPLS, and just a little bit of background. Our consortium, Georgia has 160 counties, and all but about 13 of them are members of Pines. They're broken up into regional library systems. So we have 51 out of the 60 regional library systems are part of Pines. So we have everything except for the Atlanta metro area and the Columbus metro area. I'll go ahead and show my screen. I'll talk a little bit about Kipu first, and then I'll talk about for a moment about our play card, which is our student card partnership as well.
Yeah.
Just briefly, I'll just do a real brief demo, and then you can ask me whatever questions you have. So we implemented Kipu for online registration summer of I've forgotten what year it was. Everything's been a blur since COVID.
20,
I think
21 maybe?
I think it was 21. And then we implemented eRenew last year, so 23. Okay, so we just replaced, we had been using the native Evergreen online application before, which really didn't make anybody very happy because it created a pending account and the patrons still had to come to the desk before they could use anything and blah, blah, blah. So we partnered with Kipu. We were able to get some grant funding to get it implemented with COVID, federal COVID funding, which was great. And then we're able to convince the state to give us more money to keep it going because people loved it so much. So we replaced the link here with the apply for Pines Card. And just another thing, we use the same online catalog for all of our systems. We don't have separate interfaces for each of the different library systems. So we do give cards to anyone who is a resident or works in Georgia or attends school in Georgia, because we have a lot of neighboring counties or people that, cross the border for work and that sort of thing. So we have a slightly different form for each one. If they work in Georgia, we're going to ask them where they work. And if they attend school, we're going to ask them where they attend school. And then we just store those as additional addresses. So it's a pretty basic form, and yours, I'm sure, will look pretty similar to ours when you implement it. We just ask for the name, preferred name, address. As Katie already said, regardless of how they enter the address, it will get standardized through the address validation process. We don't pay for actual identity verification. We only pay for address verification, and that I know that KeyPu can do identity verification, but we just couldn't afford it for the state. So you can add a different mailing and home address if you like, or will automatically copy it. We do require email address here, which we don't if you register in person. But because if you're signing up for this card, that we have to be able to communicate with you somehow. We do. We also standardize the Georgia driver's license number. Because we're covering the whole state, we have a lot of issues with duplicate cards. And because we've been around for Pines started before Evergreen started, so Pines has been around for 24 years now. And there are a lot of duplicate accounts and people that had cards 15 years ago, and we've long had a policy that we don't ever delete old patron information. So we have to do checks based on driver's license number. We actually just had a huge discussion yesterday, which brings into something else Elizabeth said about anonymizing old patron data. So we are probably going to try to doing that, a big project to do that this summer. I did a quick report yesterday on how many patrons we had that had expired more than 10 years ago, and that didn't have any open bills or anything on their accounts. And it was like 1.3 million patrons that are still in there that really don't need to be. So we're going to be working on that. Georgia also requires that we ask them if they want to register to vote every single time that they come to the desk to either apply for a card or renew a card. So we've just built that into here. If they want to register to vote, we just give them the link to go to the state's online voter registration. And we have to report these numbers back to the state. So we have to record that. We have a real simple statement of agreement or statement of responsibility, and then submit. Now, if we do, after they submit, do a check internally, to go back to the question someone had in chat. So I forget exactly. We've gone through a few different phases of what we actually check on to see if they already have a card. Driver's license is one. I believe we also check on a combination of first and last name and address. So if they have all those together, then we'll block it. So we still do get some duplicate patron accounts created if they've moved and they have a different address. But we couldn't just do it based on name because we have too many people with the same names. And even we did a big deduplication project about 10 years ago. And we even found quite a few people with the same first and last name and date of birth. So even that was kind of a mess to clean up. So, and then old patron accounts, anything created within the last 10 or 15 years requires a driver's license number to be entered unless it's a juvenile. But before that, it wasn't required. So we have a lot of old accounts, some of which are still even active, that never got an ID put in there. That's something that, because of the size of the patron data, we really have to have that for matching purposes. So anyway, when this gets submitted, it will do, basic standardization and validation. And if they already have a account, it will give them a message telling them, just referring them to their local library. And it will give them a link that shows the map of the library so they can find their closest library. If it's a successful registration, then it will pop up a screen that shows them their new e-card number. We give them an e-card to start out with. And that way they can start using it right away. It also triggers an email, so they'll get a welcome email just like if they were registering in person. And we did customize our welcome notices, so it will give them a slightly different message if they register online versus if they register in person. So since we're giving them an e-card, the message they get encourages them to come in and update to a full card. So if they do come in, then they will just show their ID, and staff can validate that their ID matches their address, issues them a physical card, and changes their permission group to a full patron. And that's it. Now, and I'm sorry if tell me if I'm going too long too, please.
You're okay. Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to show you also with eRenew. We
Mhm.
don't have a direct linkage between registration and renewal, but with eRenew, we had a pretty limited restrictions decided by our executive committee on what types of accounts should be able to e-renew. So we decided that it would only be certain types of patron accounts. Like we have like temporary resident accounts that we don't want to allow them to e-renew.
Yeah.
And we
Sure.
don't want staff to e-renew or to
No.
e-renew either. So it's, but we don't want patrons to e-renew. We want homebound patrons to e-renew. We want we have some special patron groups that we want to be able to e-renew. And so we only want to show the button if their expiration date is within the next 30 days or has recently passed. Or if it is expired already, then it has to have been still be active. And we have a nightly script that marks accounts inactive after 3 years.
Okay.
So, it can be expired by a year and they'll still be able to e-renew. We won't give them the option if they have any fines or any blocks on their accounts of any sort. So in that case, it will give them a message saying your account is due for renewal, but you need to do blah, 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 take care of these fines or whatever. So they don't see that until after they log in. They click on the button, it opens up a very similar form, but it's pre-populated. And it gives them the opportunity to update any information that they need to update. If they don't have an address change, then it just goes ahead and renews their account for the full term. If they do have an address change, they have the option of whether they want their home library to renew. One thing I didn't mention is when they register for a card, we use geolocation to assign which home library they should have. And so this can do the same thing if they want their home library to be updated. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if they do change their address, then we only give them a 30-day renewal, and that gives them time to come in and
Nice.
validate their address in person again. But it doesn't, stop them entirely. They can only do that 30-day renewal once, and it adds a custom standing penalty to their account that says they've already done this once. And then when they come into the library, the staff just checks their address and changes their expiration date and removes that standing penalty.
Nice.
So it's pretty straightforward. I had a little slide. So just in the second quarter last year, I think I don't have the whole year number offhand, but I think we had between 25,000 and 30,000 registrations last year.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Only about 10% of those people actually come in to upgrade to a full card because most of them just want to use Overdrive. And we just implemented the online renewals last summer. But just in the second quarter, we had over 3,000 online renewals, and that is increasing with each quarter as people get used to it.
That's fantastic. Elizabeth actually asked me about conversion to full accounts, and I was like, oh, I didn't ask them for any numbers.
Yeah, I didn't
That's
think of
neat
it
to know.
until right before we started either to get the full year. The process of registration and renewal, we use the name keywords field to put in just a piece of text so that we can run reports based on that. So if they've converted, like they start out as
Yeah,
a
'cause
Kipu card, and they go to
Mhm.
a patron card, and that's really hard to report on. But with the name
Yes.
keyword, we can put in like the starting, like this was a key pre-registration and it's now a patron card, so we can compare those numbers. Does that make sense?
It does.
I can
And I'm
I
think
can tell you more about it later if you
yeah,
want.
yeah. We'll have lots of technical and
Sure.
implementation questions.
Yeah, and we do
Which
that
I
with renewal too. So we put in the year and month of the renewal, so we can run
renewal.
reports on
Okay.
that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I like being able to track that. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing to think about. Cool. Okay. Well, I have questions I know for all the panelists, and I'm sure that we will have some for the audience. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to continue going through our panelists to hear more about what they're doing, and then we'll ask questions of everybody. So Megan, can I put you on the spot next?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I'm Megan. I am from the Newcastle Public Library, and we have implemented what we call the One Card program. This is for schools in our service area. We've noticed that we have a lot of children. We're a small city. We have a lot of middle schoolers, high schoolers that walk to the library alone. They don't have their adult with them, which would prohibit them from getting a library card, because you have to be over the age of 18. So with this program, we were trying to decide how we could get these students cards. Either their family members their adults worked and couldn't be in the library with them, or just various other reasons on why their adults couldn't be there to sign them up. So we decided to approach the schools in the area to see if they would be interested in bulk signing up all of their students for library cards. And a lot were very interested. Some took some persuading, but we have all but 2 schools in our county completely signed up for library cards.
Nice.
We go into the schools, we talk to the superintendents, we talk to the teachers, and we talk with some of the students to see if this was something that they would want to use. We do see that the teachers are using the library resources in their classrooms. So even with Libby, the students can get on Libby with this for silent reading. All the students have tablets, so they can do silent reading on there. Also, tutor.com is something that they use. I'm going to share my screen and kind of go over some of the things that we have here.
Nice.
Okay. If I can find it. Okay, so this is the sign up sheet that I give when I'm going to school board meetings or talking with teachers. This is the basic information that we would need to sign someone up. And what I do is I take that information, I put it in the spreadsheet here, and we usually get it back from the tech team. They'll get all the information and send it back to us, and I put it in a different form. That way it's easier for you guys to upload and put into actual library cards.
It's got the like ID, like you have to like code certain things that are going to be the same for everyone, but then that way Equinox, our support vendor, is able to just whoop, vacuum them all up.
So I also go in and do this presentation with all the teachers in an in-service day to let them know what One Card is, how it works, how they can benefit from it. And they all have this number as their prefix. So I guess they have this number as their prefix, the 0190. And then the 3 numbers that come after it are determined by what school they go to. So right now,
you can tell then when you see them.
Yes, we can
Nice.
tell which school they go to. And the idea is the students walk in and say, hey, I go to Laurel and my student ID number is, and they give me that. I know for Laurel that I need to put in this prefix, and then whatever student ID number they give me, and there is their card. The idea is that they just use their student ID card to check out books or use library resources instead of having to have a card here and a card there. It just makes things a little simpler. And I do briefly want to talk about the numbers, because in 2022, we had 73 students, and this is just one school district, 73 students that had active library cards. And then when we uploaded, they now have 775. And our checkouts went from 36 to 96, which is pretty good for the area. And these are just physical checkouts because someone else handles the like Libby Overdrive checkouts. But what I found interesting was that with the student cards growing, we also saw an uptick in the adult cards. So some of the students were like coming in and being like, I have one card, I have one card. And their parents would come in and check out books too and get their own card. So I thought that was very interesting that we're not only increasing the students' numbers, but our adult numbers and checkouts as well.
That is cool.
Yes, we are really excited about this. I'm working on getting graphs like this put together for all of our school districts, and we are going to be presenting them at their board meetings to show the success of the program.
Okay, I know I have questions, but I'm going to restrain myself so that I can ask everybody. Our third panelist is Dana Fairbaugh from Jefferson Hills Public Library in Allegheny County, and a new PALS board member, which is how she got convinced to come be on our panel today. So thank you, Dana, for taking time to join us, and we'd love to hear a little bit about what you all are doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I am at the Jefferson Hills Public Library, suburban Pittsburgh. We serve the West Jefferson Hills School District, along with another library that is literally on the same road as we are. It's the Pleasant Hills Library, and we get a lot of confusion about it. So I started at this job in January 2021. At that point, the Allegheny County Library System was already using Kipu for online card registrations. But shortly after I started, there was a project push by the county library system to enroll students for library cards. So I, along with the director of the Pleasant Hills Public Library, we talked with the high school librarian. So right now we are issuing student library cards to all high school students through Kipu. Starting out just with the high school, we wanted to like dip our toes into the water and see how it went first.
Sure.
But really this started because they got a new librarian. Her title is not librarian at the high school. I cannot think of what it is. Probably media specialist or something, but she reached out to me because you know, she was new. She wanted to know about what resources the public library had, because even though we are in a fairly well-funded school district, the library budget just doesn't exist, which probably sounds familiar to a lot of you. So she wanted to see what the options were. So my kind of inroad into this was through the librarian. So my advice for anybody, if you're nervous or unsure about how to approach a school board or a superintendent, talk to the librarians, because we all like talking to each other anyway. So it's a really good first step. But we do use Kipu to issue cards. So the way it works is we have a memorandum of understanding with the school district that, and I will share my screen and show you what ours looked like. It was approved by the school district and also by my library board and the Pleasant Hills Library Board, that outlines the project, what we will do as the library, what the school district will do, what the expectations are for either party, and the agreements around student privacy, because obviously all three entities are very, very concerned about that. So once that MOU was developed and approved, the next step was to send an opt-out form to all of our high school students. We decided to go with an opt-out instead of an opt-in. It's like when you're having a party and you just tell people to ask you if they're not coming, so you're not getting a million phone calls a day. It worked out really well, and we had 100% participation, which I was not expecting. So every parent or guardian decided, yep, our kids should have a public library card. And then after that, the school librarian worked with the administration and sent us a spreadsheet that had birthdays, first and last names, the middle initials, addresses, email addresses, and there might have been some other stuff in there too. We are really fortunate in Allegheny County to have a separate 501c3 organization that handles our ILS, our catalog, all of our tech stuff. So I don't have to do any of it. So once the spreadsheet was in my hands, that went to EI Network, the folks at EI Network, and they were able to upload it into Kipu, do the validation. It came back. And we did have a few that we had to check. There were some duplicates in there. There was a little bit of cleanup, but it really was an incredibly easy way to get about 1,000 kids over the past few years registered for library cards. We do it a little bit differently than other partnerships in the county. We do not issue physical cards. We do digital cards, because the original conversation was about how to get students able to use online resources. It's a lot more in my opinion, it's a lot more cost effective. I'm not paying for 1,000 library cards, maybe a portion of them that will never be used and they'll just end up in the bottom of a backpack. And it also saves a lot on staff time as well, and upload time. So we have a special patron type, and we use Sierra ILS. We have a special patron type that, it's a student digital card. It gives them access to all of our online resources, which includes like NewcastleTutor.com, which is probably like the #1 biggest draw. Yeah. They really love that. But we do have within our county a lot of other online databases. We also have the option, if they want a physical card, if they want to be able to come in and actually check out physical materials, there's a really simple process. They just have to bring in their student ID, because some of them are only 14 or 15, so they might not have a driver's license. And we switch it to a physical card, and they can check anything out. We haven't had that happen a ton. It didn't really surprise me that we haven't had a ton of student foot traffic in. We're not in a walkable community. You definitely have to be able to drive here to get here. And I think with the population demographics, it makes a lot of sense that the e-resources have really been used more. I have noticed our Libby usage started really climbing after doing this. So there are a lot of those folks using that. Yeah, I'm just gonna share my screen real quick.
Yeah,
and I can send you.
Yeah, if you
am I
can
good,
send.
Katie? Am I okay?
Yeah,
maybe I'll just do that. I will send Katie links or attachments, and that will be better, I think. And everybody can kind of see what the MOU looks like. We all just borrowed it from each other anyway, so I'm happy to share it with everybody else. And I'm also putting a press release from our county library system with more information about the project and all the school districts and everything involved, because it is a really a countywide effort. So
absolutely. Yeah, what I will do is I will compile the resources, and then I'll add them to my slides so that they're in the slide deck when that's online. And then I will once we have the recording available, I will send out a link to our membership so that they can have everything in one place, because there are a bunch of very cool things that people have shared. So I have some questions that I know I would like to ask all three of you, but please, if anybody else wants to add questions, put them in the chat, or if you wanna unmute and ask verbally, please feel free. So I'll let people think about that for a minute. And I think so Dana definitely talked about this, but how did the initiative start? who started the conversation and what other stakeholders did you need to get buy-in from to start yourself off for success? So Dana, you talked a little bit about that already. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, the one unexpected stakeholder that I had to convince was the other library in my school district. I didn't really think about that. I was just like, hey, yeah, this is great. This makes sense. Let's do it. But there was a little bit of, I don't want to say resistance, but it wasn't necessarily something they were as interested in. So if you are a library that shares a school district with another library, I definitely recommend connecting with them first and talking about it. I did not do that, and I might have stepped on some toes. So don't make the same mistake.
Always a possibility. Okay, yep, that is a good one. Megan?
So like I said, we saw that there was a need. We had a lot of children trying to check out books that weren't able to. I didn't start this program. It started right before I was hired by our previous director, but she retired about 2 months after this program was started, I believe. So I did change a few things and simplified the way that we go about doing things. Like we used to have to like hand fill out registration cards for all the students. Now I just have a template that we do that with. As far as talking to people, we start off with the school board, superintendent. The people that we really have to convince sometimes are the superintendents because they're worried about the information, like just giving us all the student information. But once we let them know like what happens with that information, why it's used, it was definitely something that that they all come around to. And we're working on onboarding this last school. That was their hesitancy. And they just decided to get parent permission forms to release the information. So that was something that was comfortable for them. We just had to find a workaround.
Okay, so they wanted more of an opt-in than an opt-out kind of. Yeah, that makes sense. And Taryn, obviously your project is very different because it's not individual school districts, right? It's all your libraries in the state.
It is actually individual school districts.
Oh,
So
for play. Okay.
yeah, for play cards it is. The Kipu is statewide. And for Kipu, we really just had to get approval by our Pines Executive Committee, which is an elected group of library directors of different library sizes from around the state. And they get feedback from all of the member libraries and everything, but they were all for it, so that wasn't a big issue.
Good.
The only since we're not doing actual patron identification validation online, there's the possibility that people are going to lie and create a bunch of fake cards, which we know is happening, but it's just e-cards, so it's what are people going to do, read more?
No.
So but for the play cards, that was a lot trickier because we have we put so much emphasis on consistent patron experience across the state, and since we're doing this district by district, it's not the same. So we went through a lot of discussions, and we had a pilot program in one county that kind of set the standard. So for the county, or for the districts that are participating, we have the same standards. So same, like we don't charge overdue fines, but we do charge for lost and damaged. And we limit checkouts to 5 physical items per student. So that's the same across everywhere. So we had to get buy-in from the executive committee to allow it in the first place. And then it's up to each one of the library systems to work with the school district to get buy-in from their folks. And they have to have an MOU between that library and the school district.
And then I think it's on here, but how many?
There's a map down at the bottom of the page.
Okay.
Yeah, the green ones are the ones that are fully the green ones have at least one district that's fully implemented.
Okay.
Most of the time it's the full county because it's in most cases the county matches the district coverage.
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Not the case in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately.
Sometimes, not usually.
Yeah. And we have just started there's also a statewide, I can't remember what it's called, but a statewide, like not homeschool, but like a statewide classroom basically for kids that can't fit into the regular school system.
Oh, so like a charter, there's
Cyber.
Yeah,
there's
it's
a
not
word for it.
really a chartered school. It's run by the state, but
Okay.
it's like a virtual classroom state. So that's been really tricky to set up because that crosses over different boundaries and everything. So that's been a nightmare.
Always the edge cases. You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't think about the
Yeah.
homeschoolers. I want the
Yeah.
homeschoolers to read too.
Yeah.
I am a former homeschooler, so appreciate that. Okay, so I don't see any questions in the chat, but I will again encourage people to put any questions in there. I wanted to ask people about challenges that you've encountered, since kind of the setup. I think, the finding the edge cases, the people who don't fit into the existing program is probably one of them. Are there other things that you have overcome or are working through with these programs that didn't present themselves at the outset?
I'm not sure if this fits perfectly within that, but we found that some kids already had library cards and
Sure.
they owed fines or fees. Our policy in Allegheny County is a lot of us are fine-free libraries now, but not everybody. And people have very different philosophical views about that. So our policy is, like, I can waive a fine because if I was collecting a 50-cent fine from a patron, I would not be sending that to like the Northland Library anyway. But replacement fees are completely different. You're not supposed to touch any that belong to another library. I will waive fees, especially personally, like for kids. I feel like, it's not a 9-year-old's fault if they cannot get a book back. Like that's kind of the parents' thing, and I don't believe in revoking access for that reason. Like I said, philosophical differences. So the challenge was, we get this list, especially in the first upload when it was all 4 grades. It was a very large chunk of people. Now every year it's just the incoming freshmen and maybe some transfer students. But it did take a lot of time and conversations and me writing some checks from the library to pay for replacement fees to get these charges off of these kids' accounts. That way they could use their cards, because Megan from Newcastle was saying, we do have the teachers now using these resources in class, and it doesn't work if there's one kid who lost a book when he was 5 and now cannot do what he needs to do for school. So that was the frustrating thing that I encountered, I think.
Yeah. And that is something that will certainly be interesting for us. One of the things that we're working on with our implementation of is there are many of our library systems that are fine if people from out of their service area have cards, and we don't have a statewide card, so you can have 6 cards from different libraries, and the libraries are thrilled about that. So but it's the implementation is different in different systems and counties, and so that's going to be a sticky widget.
So one of the things that we did at the start of the play card program too was we made a distinction between the student cards and the regular cards. So even if they had a card that was packed full of fines, we were still going to give them a student card and just keep that separate. Yeah. And we do purge the student cards after they're graduate or leave the school or whatever after a year. So we expire them, and they, the school has to upload a new data batch every year. So if they're not in the next year's data batch, then we assume that they've moved and we expire the card. but if some kids that have to move from county to county to county, they end up with a lot of different student cards at the same time, and that's okay. One of the issues we had was, since we allow 5 checkouts and we don't charge overdues, there's a few library directors who are very old school that don't believe that kids should be able to do that. And so we basically had to tell them, look, well, you can't use this program then, because we're going to allow kids 5 checkouts. And you might just have to eat those losses. But we do have for those libraries, they can manually add kids through the 2 Kipu accounts, so they can still do an e-card. We also made a decision to do opt-out for everything rather than opt-in, because we wanted to make sure that the access was as high as possible. And there's been some definite pushback against that from some of the schools, but
Yeah.
we laid down the law and said, if you want to do it, this is what you have to do it.
Yeah, and that's because this will the implementation that we're paying for will need to be consistent in a lot of ways. So we will have some, I think we'll have some people that end up electing to have their own, contracts with Kipu, so that they can make some of those different decisions.
Yeah, if you don't start out consistently, the minute you give like one exception, they're gonna push and ask for more.
Spark is the land of exceptions. Pennsylvania is the land of exceptions. We really firmly believe in local control in Pennsylvania. And as a Quaker, I blame the Quakers because they started it. So there's a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of challenge there. So it's always fascinating to me to look at, even ACLA and EI network, in Pennsylvania, but working with very different structures than we typically have in the more rural areas versus other states. And so it's always neat. Megan, did you have any other challenges that you wanted to?
To kind of go off what Taryn and Dana both said, we kind of had discrepancies on who would be responsible for the books and materials if they were lost. Some schools were like, well, that's all on the parents. So like we used the parents' phone number and things like that, and made the parents aware that this is what's happening. And then other schools were like, yeah, that's fine, put us down and we'll be the ones that are in charge of that if they lose the books. I think we only had 2 schools do that. So the phone number listed is actually the school's phone number, and the parents is the secondary number. Yeah, there are smaller ones, like our career and technical school and ones like that. But that was kind of a difficulty that we had to see, well, who is responsible for these missing items.
Yeah, I think that the programs where people are getting, they may not be getting physical library cards, but they're getting access to physical materials. There's a lot of other management that comes into that. And it's a wonderful program and a wonderful resource to be able to reduce that barrier for kids, but it adds a layer of complexity for sure when you're talking about the physical resources. So a question from the chat, which is related, is and we've heard some about pushback from school districts over opt-in versus opt-out. Has anyone had individual parent requests wanting to revoke, or I would add to that question, wanting to have access to information about library transactions for their students?
I would say that I haven't had any parents against the one card program. I've had a lot of people excited about it.
Good.
So yes, that is a good thing. And when we do have the signups for the schools, like for the ones that wanted it, we actually had 100% of the parents complete those and send them in. We didn't have any that opted out of it. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, that people are really receptive.
Yeah. that's awesome. And you said, Dana, it was the same thing, that nobody opted out, right?
Yeah, we haven't had any negative or challenging feedback. I think this is a link that I will also send out after we're done, but one of the things that they also get a copy of is our patron privacy policy. So I think that might help a little bit, like even like we're not going to give you that anyway, so don't ask.
Don't ask. Can't have it.
Yeah, just don't ask. But no, we haven't had any issues like that. Luckily, knock on wood. I don't know, Barb, you probably put it out in the universe now, so thank you.
And we require the schools districts to keep track of the opt-outs. So for the initial student uploads, they only give us the information for the students that aren't opted out. And then they also send us file uploads, sometimes weekly, sometimes nightly, depending on the school district, that have new opt-outs. So parents can go to the school district and opt their child out after they've had it in place.
Okay, so they can't, there's a mechanism
Yeah.
to revoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is a good question for everybody, because I know that there are I've had this conversation as a district consultant and with other district consultants, but for those of you offering, e-cards or just regular patron cards, do you have different access levels to your electronic content? So I will steal Heather's example because she's the district consultant at Altoona now. But when we did an opt-in program with students at the middle schools in Altoona, one of the things that the school district really wanted us to add was we did previously not filter content based on permission group, and they asked that we start doing that for those cards. I will say that for when we do the Keeple implementation, because they will be separate permission groups, libraries will be able to decide how they want to handle that completely individually with their own e-content providers. But I'm curious about what people are doing now.
We do not, and my, I guess, thought process behind that is if a kid would come in and pull a book off the shelf that, like,
they can check it out. It's fine.
I know what it is, but like I'm not stopping it, so it's kind of the same with online
we
content.
totally agree with that, Dana, and we didn't want to filter it at all because I mean, on a library level, we were like, no, we don't want to do that. But Dana, you know, the school gives us a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And we didn't want to jeopardize that. So we were like, sure, we'll filter it. Thank you. Sorry. So
Yeah,
so there will be.
Yeah, and then they like just whatever. But by the way, we also have this print collection, kids. Yeah. That's the workaround.
To go off of that again, that this is something that a lot of the superintendents were also worried about, is what their students would have access to. And while we did not personally filter these things, we sent home instructions on how parents or the school can filter per card. So we left that discretion up to the parents to decide what they did want their children to have access to.
Nice. Yeah, that's it. And that's where it should be, right? It should be in the hands of the parents and the families to make their own decisions. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so yeah, in Georgia, that makes sense because the e-resources are per library district, so they're going to make those decisions. I'm trying to see if there was. Oh, go ahead.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So, just in general, like, what do you do if you get a student leaves mid-year or joins the school mid-year? I assume you get updates from the the districts periodically on new students? Okay.
Yeah, we get each district can choose how often they want to do uploads, but they do one big upload at the start of each school year, and then they do either weekly or nightly or a couple times a week uploads throughout the rest of the year.
Oh wow, that's really far more efficient than I thought.
Yeah, it's we give every school district their own secure SFTP site, and so they can just upload whenever they want to. And then we just have a nightly script that checks all of the SFTP sites.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Katie, mark that down.
Yeah.
That.
Hours, a lot of our students are just moving from school district to school district that we already have onboarded. And for that, all we do is change those 3 little numbers on their card, their student ID if they need it. Sometimes for some reason it just carries over. I don't know. But we'll use the same account with just adding on that secondary card. So that it's an easy transition. And we do get uploads at the beginning of the year, and then we do let them know that if they get students or lose students to let us know.
Yeah, we do the same. And like I guess like last option in place is if you're over 13, you can register for an online card through our catalog for the county. So there's that option, but we do a big upload in the fall. And then there's usually another big upload in the spring if people want to participate, but we don't get a ton of people. There aren't many starting during the school year. If someone leaves, they have a card. We don't really keep track of when people leave the school district or anything.
And then I know for the Pines cards, they do purge those after graduation for
Yeah, we keep it for a year after so all of them expire, I think October 15th. So it gives some overlap in case a school's late getting their upload in. And then so when they do the new batch upload, if they already have a card, it just updates the expiration date. If they don't have a card, it gives a new one. If they leave, it just expires the account, and then we'll purge it after a year after it's expired. So if they leave temporarily and come back, then it's still there.
Right. And that's another reason why it works well for you to have separate personal cards versus student cards, is then you're not scrubbing anybody who for Megan and Dana, do you have plans to remove that data at any point if people haven't converted over to physical library cards?
We set them to expire. I think it's a 4-year expiration date. That way,
For high school
they
students, that would make sense.
they shouldn't have to do anything about it while they're still in school. If they're continuing to use the card and they're going through the renewal process, then it stays there. But we do purge anybody who's been inactive for 3 years. So if somebody graduates and never uses their card again, it will be gone anyway.
That is the same exact way that it works for us.
Cool. Nice. Well, I would love to have more questions, but we are starting to run close to our end of time. So my last question, and you all talked about this a little bit, but how do you measure success? So, we looked at some of the numbers from everybody, but what are sort of the outcomes that tell you that this is doing what I want it to do?
For us, it was a foot in the door with the school district, and
Sure.
The hard numbers, the usage statistics, and the number of cards that we have and everything are great, but we now have a really nice relationship with the high school. And whenever we're doing something or trying to do something, now I know I have someone I can talk to, and vice versa. And it's led to some joint grant opportunities, and a lot of other great things have come out of it.
It's like a race condition where you have you do the card, you have the better relationship to do the cards, and then you get a better relationship, you get more cards, you know, keeps on going. Cool, thank you.
For ours, we kind of celebrate the small steps. So one is getting in to talk with the board or the superintendent. Second one is getting them to agree to come on. The third is actually getting the information. The fourth is getting it out to them. And the fifth is going to be seeing the numbers grow. So our checkouts are really where we look. We compare previous years to current years to see what growth, if we're actually having an effect on the community this way. And so far we have, and we hope to continue that with more outreach and programs that we're doing with the schools.
It's really interesting looking at the numbers too, because you can tell so easily which schools are actually doing a good job promoting it to their classes, and which schools are like bringing their kids to the library to show them how to use it and that sort of thing, because the numbers are so different from school to school. One of the biggest differences that we've noticed are the schools that are like right next to a library or down the street from a library, because those numbers have really skyrocketed now that kids know that they can get there so easily from school.
And that when they get there, they can use all of the resources. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's been a really incredible tool dealing with our legislature because this school cards make really good PR and they love it. Like, and since we're being attacked in the legislature for certain things right now in Georgia, we can turn around and say, look at this amazing thing that we're doing. And so it's been a really good, you know, politically and funding wise for us too.
Wonderful.
Yeah, one of our big countywide funders loves it, and that's why there's the county library system does a really good job about talking about this, because they really, it is very, very good PR.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I will have a few seconds of silence to see if anyone has questions while I bring up my wrap-up slides here. Went too far. Okay, so thank you to all three of our panelists. I'm very appreciative of your time and the resources and facts and figures that you shared with us. This has been really fun for me, and I know that our members enjoyed it and will enjoy watching the recording as well. What I will do is throw the links in here in this slide into my slides, and then I'll also send them out once the recording is available so that everyone has all of that. And I will mention one more time that we are very happy to have grant funding for these projects and could not do this work without the Office of Commonwealth Libraries and the IMLS. And I have a evaluation survey for you. If you have a moment to fill it out, to tell us about the users group meeting in general and your thoughts and comments and feedback. So I put that link in the chat. And thanks again to everyone for being here today and for sharing your time this morning with us. I will hang out a little bit in case anybody does have any questions.